Hey guys, how are you? Welcome to JDC Auto here in Las Vegas, Nevada. We're doing a video today. Customers brought in a 2005 Toyota Scion XA. They have a check engine light on. We're going to figure out what's going on with the car, hook up our scan tool, and get down to the problem. Alright guys, so once you get your scan tool and you're ready to get the job done, first of all we need to figure out what the code is. Let me take out the key so it stops beeping here. Underneath the dash here, most cars have the OBD2 port, which is usually just underneath here. So go ahead and look underneath real quick, find your connector, and ours is going to be a straight-on connection here. So pop that bad boy on, and we're going to hook up the scan tool here. Turn the ignition. There we go. We have a connection already. And what we're going to do is we're going to select our vehicle, Scion. Here goes. Got it. So we're going to hook up to the Scion. We're going to select Scion in our options here on our scan tool. The key is turned to the on position, so it has access. I'm going to go ahead and do automatic selection, and it should automatically read the VIN of the vehicle. Going to read codes. Let's see if it can read the VIN. There we go. The code has been read by the scan tool. Okay, we're going to continue on here. And the first thing we're going to check is what is the check engine light on for. So this is asking me 2004, 2005. This vehicle is a 2005 Scion. If you don't know, on the stickers here, it'll tell you the year of the vehicle. This is an automatic transmission, not a manual transmission. You can tell by the shifter. Obviously, if you know the difference, it'll be easy to tell. So we're going to select automatic transmission. And we have everything. North America, XA, NCP 2005, automatic transmission with the VIN. Yes, this is our car. And now it's going to establish communication with the vehicle. Now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Diagnosis. We're going to go to Auto Scan. We're just going to, you know what, we're going to select everything. It's going to auto scan everything, giving us all the codes so we can figure out what's going on with it. Right now it's running the engine and ECT, reading all the codes. Oh, we have 9 fault codes on the engine and ECT. I'm going to check the ABS. And your system's going to be running for a little bit over all of the components of the car. Now, I also like to check the battery on this phase. If you look in the top right, if you have a good scan tool, it'll tell you the volts are 12.38 volts, which means the battery's good. We're holding a good 12 volts. And so this is checking all of the all of the codes, is scanning for any issues. And should be done here in a second. Alright, so we're done here with all of the systems here. We're going to go ahead and select our engine code here and see what our 9 ones are. The ECU controls the fuel injection, the knock, speed, self-diagnosis function, backup function is extraordinary circumstances, running emissions. Okay. Continuing, let's go ahead. Alright, so now we got to our engine ECU. We're going to check our trouble codes here. So on the trouble codes, we're going to see what we can get. I know it's kind of hard to see through the camera, but we are going to pull these up here. Alright. We have, oh boy, okay. This is actually a pretty common car for, common problem for the Toyota Scions is the Evap leak. I have code P0441, 442, 446, and actually it's, some of these codes are, we have ones in the history, and we have some in the, that are pending right now, so, and some that are current. So we actually only have about 3 codes here, 441, 442, and 446. So we're going to go and look up those codes and search what they are exactly. It says here on the right, 441 is an evaporation control system purge flow incorrect, which could be our purge valve in the engine bay, which I'll show you where that is and what we're going to do, test that. Evap control system leak detected. It says a small leak. And again, the purge valve, if it is sticking open or it's not opening or there's a leak in the system somewhere, it will cause that, and it says small leak. So, and then it says the evaporative control system vent control circuit. And that's going to be back on the canister, which should be in the back side of the car here. So we have 3 codes, 441, 442, and 446. So let's go ahead and start to look at some of those troubleshooting codes. Alright guys, so here we are at the screen. I'm sorry, I'm actually just shooting the camera at my my monitor here. And right when I pull up the car, 2005 Scion XA 1.5 liter, you can see already on the main screen here, common DTCs, which is the Diagnosis drivetrain codes. These are going to be first three, 442, 441, and 446, the most common with these Toyotas and Scions. This is a huge, not huge, but it's very common with those ones. So we can go ahead and take a look here and see what we got going on. And related to it, we're going to click the code P442, and we can actually go to real fixes and what people have done. And the most common one with 287 to 156 are replacing the gas cap. So customer states they did replace the gas cap. Sometimes if they don't use a OEM or a decent quality gas cap, it can still leak. And then other than that, they've replaced the Evap canister, and I'm sure they replaced the purge valve. Incorrect purge flow. Yep, here we go. Scan tool, same code as me, 442, evaporative emission system leak. An emission system vent code circuit inspected, and they found no obvious damage. Scan tool, and we're going to seal the system as well. We're going to do the same thing, and they are going to conduct a smoke machine test. I don't have a smoke machine, so I will be using a different method if needed, but I'm going to start first in the front and figure out what's going on. So let me go ahead and go to the front of the vehicle, and we are going to take off the purge valve and just give a quick test, because that is an easy just diagnosis, and sometimes that could be just it. I'm also going to inspect the gas cap as well, because they did say they did buy a new gas cap, and we'll go from there. Now guys, on this vehicle specifically, how to access the gas tank. If you own the car, you know the car. Down here, just by the seat, there's a little picture of a gas tank. You're going to go ahead and just pull that, and that will release the gas cap here. Now once the gas cap is released, you can actually go ahead and head over to the tank here, and what we're going to do is we're going to take it out, and we're going to inspect the gas cap to make sure it's in a good condition. So we're going to open it, take it off. And first of all, as you're taking it off as well, notice whether it was on tight. Now this gas cap was not on there that tight, so that could have been a problem as well. But after checking it, it is a new gas cap. I'm checking the rubber seal around it. The seal looks, this cap is for sure brand new. The spring looks like in good condition. You can usually get a tool as well that can check the pressure on these, but it does look in a new order. The seal is great. Check the actual round of it, make sure there's no scarring or any like damage to the gas receptacle itself, to make sure it's not leaking gases or vacuum through the sides. And I'm going to put this on here. Okay. That's on there all the way. Gas cap's looking good. The gas cap does look new, and it does look replaced, so let's go ahead and move on to the purge valve in the front. Alright guys, before we're going to get too far, what I want to do actually is an active live test. So if you do have a good quality scan tool, you can actually perform an active live test of everything. So in it, you can go to your diagnostics, and you're going to be able to go, let's escape this, so how I got here. So once you get into the car, after you get to the ECU unit, you can actually go to, you have the screen, you have the trouble codes, live data, active tests, and special functions. So I'm going to do an active test. And when we go to the active tests, we should be able to test all of the issues we have here. So we have injector volume, air fuel control, idle air, fuel pump, and actually purge vacuum switching valve, which is the purge valve. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to try to test the purge valve. Let's see what we got. Purge valve VSV on off. Only Evap VSV is commanded during the test. Okay. See all data. There we go. MIL status is on. Complete parts monitor is available. Fuel system monitor. Continue that. Misfire monitor. The EGR is off. Sensor. The purge vacuum switch valve is right now currently closed and off. So I was looking for that switch really quick. So let's go here and let's go ahead and click it on. Alright guys, at this point what I'm listening for is the click or the tick sound from the engine bay for the computer sending the electrical signal to activate the solenoid, the purge valve, and I don't hear it. So I decide to start the car, and as the car's running, I'm changing the on and off to see if there's any change in the RPMs, which there should be. There should be some type of stutter or change after the engine is warmed up and settled down. And after a bit, this is what we got. Yeah, it's definitely not too much change here, so we might have an issue with the purge valve. Yeah. So already it's giving me a sign that it's the car's been warmed up, it has been running, so obviously it's past that phase. But still, there was a change in the initial beginning, but I think the valve itself is getting stuck, or unfortunately isn't quite getting what it, you know, maybe it's sticking, maybe the solenoid. So we're actually going to go take a look at it and do a manual test on that valve. Alright guys, so here we are at the front of the engine. I wanted to show you guys this, open the hood already and just do a visual inspection. What's great about the Toyotas is the purge valve is sitting just here right on top of the engine, so it's a very easy piece to access. And I'm already doing just a very simple visual inspection of it, and I do want to show you guys exactly what I'm seeing here and already reasons why there could be a small leak. So this is our vacuum solenoid valve here that comes, as you can see, the hose runs to the back here, and it's hard to see as you go back, but it does run down and goes back to the gas tank and the canister. And this is going to be the line that comes into the manifold and draws vacuum. And I'm already looking, and as you can see right here, I don't know if you guys can see that, and as we follow it down, you can see there at the intake, there is a big crack in that hose. And that hose definitely could be reason why we don't have a good seal on the system. And that comes from the manifold, comes up to the top, back to the valve here, and then again from the valve back. So already after just a small visual inspection, there is a big crack on the hose there. And that could be one of the main reasons why we're having a small leak detected. And yeah, so let's go ahead and test the valve here. I'm going to take it off. I'm also going to get my voltage meter, and with the voltage meter as well, what I'm going to do is, after I unplug it, I'm also going to test to see if the voltage is coming strong from the computer to the system here. And once we get it going and tested, we'll know whether or not the computer is sending it. So we're kind of troubleshooting, knocking out whether or not some problems exist or not. First thing we're going to do actually is we are going to unplug the sensor here and go ahead and do a test on the sensor and see how it is. Alright, there we go, it should hold. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and unplug the sensor here. So we're going to push this little tab, and it should give a little bit of a wiggle, and it should just come right off here. Sometimes these engine parts get a little bit baked on there, and we're going to go ahead and inspect it. Now I know a reason why the purge valve isn't working. As you can see, the fucking cable has broken off, and the purge valve is not even functioning because the connector is broken and ripped off. So I don't know if the last shop did that, or if there is just because it's old or got pulled on. Sometimes people pulling off the air valve pull this off and they rip it off and they don't put it on right, but there's already a big issue. And that's the reason why it won't work. So there's one issue right there. So obviously we're going to need a new connector 100% for this. So that is one problem. And for sure, reason why the solenoid isn't working, but we're still going to take it off and test the solenoid. I am still going to test the voltage to it, and I'm going to check the wires here. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and check right now, and I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me see if I can get a good zoom in on this. So I'm going to go ahead and sit here, let that run right there. Alright, so scan tool, you can see on the top there, it's showing not much right now. Now, it shouldn't show me anything right now, so let me see where that's connected in at here. It's going to be on the right side here, so I'm going to stick one probe here, and I'm going to stick one probe on the other side as well in the wire here, and nothing. So what should happen is when I go to the car and turn on the key, what should happen is I should get some voltage. And once I get some voltage here, we should get some type of signal from here. Oh, there we go. We should be getting, yep, we're getting some reading here, but because it's such a poor connection, it's not showing up. So showing at 6.4, which is definitely really low for that. or maybe the right amount actually. But anyways, we're showing a 6.4 voltage, and which means the computer is sending the signal to the solenoid to activate, but because of the ripped cable, the solenoid isn't working. So now that we found that that broken wire is obviously an issue, we're going to go ahead and take out the purge valve. It's just a clip holding it on, so I am going to grab a flathead screwdriver. I'm going to take a flathead screwdriver and pop it off of this, and we will go from there, buddy. So there's actually a little hole in the back of it here that is meant for a screwdriver, and you can kind of press it out and pull up with it, and it should pop right out like that. So once you get it out, we're going to go ahead and take off the purge valve. We're going to test the solenoids and make sure if there's a seal, if there's not a seal. It shouldn't allow any air or vacuum to go through it. And so we're going to go ahead and take off these hoses here. We're going to move our broken electrode connector out of the way. And then we're going to go ahead and gently pull this off. This one does have a little clamp, but it's not very strong. And there we go. It's pretty simple, two-part. Now, you shouldn't be able to suck or blow, or air should not come through here, so I'm going to clean it up and go ahead and give it a manual test. Alright guys, so now we have the purge valve out. I did clean it up a little bit. As you can see, there are two little nipples on this purge valve. The two nipples on the purge valve are where the air will come from the, or the vacuum will come from the manifold and be pulling suction through, and this will come back from the canister in the rear of the car. The system should emit a vacuum. There should be zero leaks. So this should not have any airflow through it if I blow or suck through it. So we're going to go ahead and do a manual test, and we're going to listen for, I'm going to put a vacuum on it, and I'm going to release. You should hear a pop, or you shouldn't have any air coming through. So it's holding a vacuum. It has no play. So the solenoid is actually good, which is great. So, and obviously we know our problem is not with the is not with the solenoid. So the solenoid has been diagnosed and is in a good working condition. So I'm also going to do a small voltage test to see if the solenoid is functioning, and we will do that. So, all right, guys. So now we're going to do a quick test on the solenoid itself. I have hooked up a positive terminal to the battery and a negative terminal, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch it to each of the prongs in here just gently, and you should hear a click or a little tick or a knock of the solenoid functioning, opening and closing. And so this is a way to test the solenoid if it's good. So now we're going to test it and feel it. I don't know if you guys can hear it. It is clicking, it's activating. And if I go ahead and leave it on there, now the solenoid is open, allowing the vacuum, resealing. So the solenoid is good, and the good news is they took it to a shop just before me here, and they did quote them a brand new purge solenoid. They didn't even look at it, and it's scummy work like this that really gives bad name to automotive. And that's the whole point here. I'm gonna do honest, fair work and do the right job without charging so much money for I think they quoted them over $1,000 for the job, and already it seems it's just as simple as a little wired connector, you know, and it just gives a bad name to the automotive field. So after performing just a simple test, the solenoid is in a good working condition. There is a couple issues with the hose here. I'm going to request to replace the hose here because it is old and cracked, and that could be causing a small vacuum leak. But I'm also going to go ahead and test the rest of the system as well to see if we have a good seal. Alright guys, so now what I'm going to do, now that we figured out the purge valve is working great, the connector is broken, it seems to be a major problem, and we may have a small leak from this front hose, I'm going to go ahead and do a next test, which is going to be the, I'm going to see if the valve is open in the back or if it's leaking. I'm going to go ahead and keep it open for right now, and then I'm going to go in and manually close it from my my scan tool, and then I'm going to try to perform a light vacuum test or a pressure test on the system here. So I'm going to go ahead and stick my air hose nozzle. Sorry about that. Let me go ahead and put this back on the stand here. So I'm going to stick the air hose nozzle in my compressor, and I'm going to go ahead and put a light amount of air into the system here and see if I can get it to make some noise out the back here. So I'm going to show you where I'm going to put it carefully. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take it back to show you again. So I'm going to show you where I'm going to put it, and then I'm going to put you back by the back end. You should hear bubbles or sound coming back from the back. So this is the purge valve. We already did this hose front part, and now this goes back to the gas tank. So I'm going to go ahead and stick the tip of my air hose nozzle into that and give it a light pressure, very light, just because you don't want to damage any of the systems here. And I did open the gas cap already on the vehicle. And alright, so I'm going to go ahead and try to flush some air through the system here. And so you should hear bubbles, you should hear sound. And I will also keep an ear open for it. So let's go ahead and try it here. And as you can see, you can hear the bubbles coming through. So that's great. So let's go ahead and close the system here. By that I mean the gas cap. So we're going to close it. So we have an open valve here, so which means basically the system is open. Now let's go ahead and actually before I close that, I'm going to keep that open. And I'm going to try it again. Hopefully you won't hear any hissing or any sounds from the front through that gas cap. So we're going to go ahead and go back to the front here, and I'm going to try to pressurize the system and then seal it off and see if it holds a little bit of pressure. And I'm going to try to crimp it off with my my little doctor tool here. I think doctors use just to crimp off arteries, or not arteries, but crimp off something, some hoses. So I'm going to actually put maybe some tape in between this just so it lessens the damage to any of the hoses. I'm going to go ahead and put some we're going to put some tape on the edge of this so it doesn't damage it as much. It's going to lessen the chomp. See if we can keep this. Got it, and that should be able to hold some of the air. But let's see if we can get a light vacuum on the system here, or light pressure. Alright guys, at this point I put several passes of air through it. You can hear a hissing in the back. At this point I realized that the system is open. With the gas cap on, there is a vent valve back on the canister that needs to be closed. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our scan tool, get in the car, and we are going to close that back vent. This way we can actually put pressure on the full system. We're going to come back to the front here. Make sure the key's on. We're going to go to active tests. There we go. We're going to go to active tests, and we're going to go ahead and go to the, scroll over, the canister pressure control vacuum switching valve. And, okay, we're going to get to that, and what we're going to do is, doesn't give me all data. I think this is it. The evaporative emissions Evap vacuum switching valve. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to turn it on. Oh, there we go. Okay, it's not showing it in the actual system here, but on the live one on top here it is showing it. So it's on now. It's remaining on, so we are going to go ahead and try to test it again here and see if we can get some pressure built on the system. So I'm going to go ahead and try to put some pressure in here, see if it can hold it. Alright guys, so this is what we're going to do. I didn't record it, but I did do the test already, but I'm going to record it for you guys so you can see what I did here. I wanted to check to see if the system itself is holding, if it is holding pressure. So I came here to my diagnostic tool, I turned on the evaporative emissions vacuum switching valve, which turns it on, which means it activates it, closing the valve when it's activated, which means the system can hold pressure. Now a good test that I do, I put my compressor, actually it's not on the full power. Let me see where it's at right now. It's down to only 15 pounds of pressure, which is still a lot for this system, but we're not going to put all of it in. We're just going to lightly put it in here. So that back part of the valve here, I need a new camera stand for sure. It's just pissing me off, this one. So So the back part of the valve here, the valve, there's the one that goes back to the gas tank, and there's the one that goes to the manifold, which the vacuum comes. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the tip of this here just into here, and I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of pressure. And I'm going to hold it with my thumb. And a good test as well is just to release and see if it holds pressure. I don't know if you guys heard the hiss. It is holding pressure. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to put pressure on the system. I am going to clamp it off with some clamps that I have put a little bit of black tape on just to kind of make sure I don't dig into the hose, because these are a little bit older hoses and they are cracking, as you can see by one of our problems here. Now, there's super cheap fixes that you can do if the customer is really not wanting to spend anything. But I am going to really recommend to replace these hoses, which are very easy and very inexpensive. So I have a little crimper tool here that I just put black electrical tape on to kind of soften the pinch on it. So I'm going to put pressure on the system, and I'm going to plug it. And once I'm done plugging it, I'm going to go ahead and crimp it off, and then I'm going to be able to hold pressure on the system. And unfortunately, I don't have a gauge to inspect that, so I'm going to just put a little bit of pressure here. Oh, I'm going to do it again because I didn't hold enough pressure on there. One more time because I keep messing that up. Alright, so now there's pressure on the system here, and I'm just going to take a clamp here and clamp down and make sure. Yep, okay. So I'm putting my ear to the hose here. There's no air escaping through that, so that is sealed, and there's sure pressure on the system. Another easy way you can tell is we're going to head back first to the gas cap here and see if we hear any hissing or anything like that. So we're going to go ahead and open the gas cap again. We're going to come on in, and we're going to try to listen for any hissing. So we're going to put it here against this and see if we can hear any of the hissing on the gas cap. I do hear a light hiss, but it may not be because the gas cap is bad necessarily, but because I put a little bit of higher pressure than recommended. Another way you can tell is if you start to loosen the gas cap, you should start to hear air escaping. There, I don't know if you can hear that, but it started to, which means the system is holding pressure. So, which is good. The gas cap is holding back the amount of pressure. Now the next step I want to do, and actually I've already done it, is what I've done is I've actually come under the car, and I do have a bottle of soapy water, very soapy water. So if you don't have a smoke machine to check, I did put soapy water, just Dawn dish soap, and I did spray all of the components here just to detect for any leaks, any bubbles, and there was no air escaping, there's no air getting out of anywhere. Everything looks pretty good, and I will be washing this off just to kind of confirm. And I did go underneath the other side and inspect all these hoses, and everything seems pretty sealed tight. So our main issue is coming down to a simple that front solenoid, and maybe that front purge valve solenoid wire, just the connector, and maybe even the hose here in the bottom, which I'm going to replace for sure because it is cracked pretty heavily and probably is leaking. So that's the diagnosis. So I've come down to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace this connector in the front here. Simple connector problem here. So this connector I'm going to replace. Going to buy a new connector head and just recrimp on and connect these wires. Probably get some shrink wire and make sure we're going to make sure it's a solid connection. Reclip it on, clear the codes, dry it for a bit, and that should fix the problem. And yeah, that's it, guys. Alright guys, welcome back. So we actually went out and got a new connector. It did not come exactly like this, but we had to do some connector rebuilding. So this was a whole task in itself, and I was figuring it out, and I didn't want to look like a jackass on camera because I'd never built a connector before. But I do understand simple common sense, and I already tested the connector. It does have voltage coming through the terminals on the front perfectly, so we are good to go. So I went and got a new connector here. If you need the part number, it is that is the housing connector for the purge valve 90980-11156. This is from Toyota directly, direct replacement part from Japan. So I had to take out these rubber grommets and the clips in the front here and basically rebuild this connector, put in some fresh wire, so it's not broken at the back. So I have a fresh connector. I do have fresh wires. And yeah, so we're good here on that. So I got this piece. Now the next thing I'm going to do is, because I actually gave myself a lot of room to play here. It's going to be really long and goofy looking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of cut down the wires a little bit and then connect it. So that's going to be around the same length here. So I'm going to do is going to strip these wires. I'm going to cut down this housing a little bit to reveal the wires. So cut them down a little bit. When I'm done cutting them down a little bit, I'm going to splice and actually solder these wires on. Heat shrink, heat shrink around it. With some more heat shrink here like I have here, and I'm going to seal the system well and make sure it has a good connection. So that's the next phase here. We're going to go ahead and attach the new wires and get this thing with a good connection again. Alright guys, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut back this housing around here. It should only have the 2 wires, so as carefully as possible I'm going to go ahead and just split this. Don't worry, I have new hose that I'm going to put over this to cover it, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm actually going to do heat shrink, which I think heat shrink will be a little bit nicer. So I'm going to heat shrink around it and we're going to make it look nice. So we're going to cut this, and I'm not too worried about it because this part only gets power when the computer is on, and the key is in the on position and the key is in the off position. So technically if I really wanted to, I should probably disconnect the battery, but seeing as it doesn't have power to it, I think we will be okay. So now that I've stripped off that outer shell, I am going to cut this back about a good inch on both and then make sure they're both even. And I'm going to just give that a little clip. So now we have good, even, fresh wires. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip those wires. These wires are going to get stripped. Obviously, 1 power, 1 ground. And that's pretty much all it is. And these go to the ECM. So I have a really small wire cutters here. And these, I'm going to just run it around and go ahead and strip that off. And I have 1 more here. I'm going to try to make sure it's even. Hold the wire firm. Strip this up. Awesome. So now we have 2 ready to go wires here. I'm going to go ahead and cut small pieces of the shrink wrap that I'm going to pre-place on there before I'm going to add my new wires. So guys, all I was doing over here, sorry, I was cutting my large shrink wrap to kind of replace this big wrap over all of it. I was cutting my large shrink wrap to go over this, plus have a little bit of additional, and plus I'm going to kind of move it down, and an individual shrink wrap for the wires that are going to be inside of this, whoops, and so that these are protected from inside the shrink wrap so they're not touching each other. Technically I could just do one, but I prefer to do both just to kind of keep it on the safe side. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide on the very large shrink wrap here. Go. Alright. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and place the one here. So I'm going to do the red for the black wire and then the white for the white wire. And I have 2 shrink wraps here. So this is going to come from the ECM to these wires, which activates the purge solenoid here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get my solder gun. Here for right now. We're going to get this cooking, and we're going to go ahead and white's on the left. So I'm going to keep the left on the left and the right, the white on the right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to actually untwist this a little bit so I can actually intermesh the wires here, and then try to twist them together a little bit here, just kind of create a little bit of a hold. They're intermeshed. Alright guys, my next step here is to solder these wires. I had a really bad camera angle during the filming process because I was shooting the video myself, so I couldn't see all my camera angles because I was so focused on the job. But I do solder these wires, and again, you don't have to use solder. You can use any type of wire connecting capabilities. There are clips you can buy, there are tubes you can buy, you can use that as well. I do recommend shrink wrapping because it does keep liquids and dust and dirt and grime out, and also keeps the connections from grounding to each other and causing issues. So always shrink wrap and make sure it's good. So the next video and phase is going to be after I'm done with everything. Alright guys, I'm going to start the video here. So I'm just finishing up a solder here to show you guys how one of the joints got soldered. I successfully got a solder on the second joint here. You can see the silver melted into the wires, holding them together super strong. I already did the bottom one. That one took me a little bit more time, but after I got used to the gun, because I have a new soldering gun, I was able to be a little bit more efficient on the second one. So now I pull on the wires to make sure that everything is nice and tight and everything is good on there, and the connection is solid. That is not coming apart. I am going to take some pliers here. It's a little bit blurry, but I'm going to take pliers and kind of crimp it down and kind of mash down the wires a little bit, just so when I put the shrink wrap over it, it's going to hold and be a little bit more uniform and nice. So we have a very solid connection. I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead now to the next part, which is going to be with everything all together and how it looks and everything being at the finished result. Awesome. So now we have the wires wrapped, connected, and shrink wrapped together. The next thing we're going to do is test the electrode connector with the computer on. Alright, so now we have our connector on, the shrink wrap, they're protected from corrosion, water, all of that. What we're going to do now is, I'm going to show you right now, we're going to test for the connection here to make sure we're getting positive power to the solenoid here, and that's going to cause everything to work right. So we're going to go ahead and stick our two ends into each side here, and right now it should show nothing, 0, as it's doing. Correct. Alright. So we have nothing there. Now we're going to go turn the key on and perform the same test. The key is all the way in the on position and now should be receiving power to the solenoid. So now we're going to take and do our voltage test. One on the other. And as you can see, we're getting 10.89 volts, so we are getting some, and hopefully you guys can see that. We're getting 10, almost 11 volts to the solenoid now, so that's great. So this should activate the solenoid, and means that we have a good circuit now. So the next thing we need to replace after that, we're going to go ahead and reconnect the hose on the back here. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to reconnect the hose on the back of the solenoid. This one went back to the gas tank. We kind of tested it. So we're going to slide this piece right back on here. So on the back of the solenoid, it's hard to see. So right here. And then you do need to pinch this clamp, move it up, and make sure it seals well. Excellent. And then we do need to replace the hose here, which I ended up buying brand new hose right here. So this was the old hose. And as you can see on the old hose, let me go ahead and back this out. So as you can see on the old hose here, we did have at the bottom here, there was a pretty large, yeah, right there. So it's a pretty large crack. It's hard to see. Let me see if I can set it down. Split right there. There you go. Now you can see it. All right, so there's a big split. So we got some new hose. Same size, diameter. You can go down to your local O'Reilly or AutoZone. And as you can see, they're the same circumference, same diameter, and the same length. So what I'm going to do is just going to give that a replacement. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this new hose on. If it's giving you a hard time, you can loosen it a little bit, but it shouldn't be too hard to slide on. So we're going to put it back. I want to first go on the manifold. Now this one didn't have any hose clamps. Like I said, this system doesn't hold tons and tons and tons of vacuum. So we're just going to slide that on. And you can kind of go over or under. Kind of go under here and slide this on. Now this hose is actually a little bit too long, so what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to give it a cut about a good... I ordered a little too much hose here, so what we're going to do is I'm going to give it a good inch cut here, just to kind of get rid of some of that extra hose. Alright guys, so here we are again. We have the car up and running, we have the valve on. I tested the valve, it is activating with the scan tool. We have our brand new hose here for the vacuum, which is great. I am going to take it out for a drive. So that's basically it. You know, this should be fixing the problem. I tested the rest of the system. As you saw, there was no other leaks, so we're looking good so far. No check engine light, but I'm going to take it for a little bit of a drive and see what we get. And thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully this was helpful and useful to you. And don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, all the good stuff, because we got more content coming. Hot channel coming out. Again, thanks for being here, and we will catch you guys next time.